Hello, I am Adriana, and I'm going to share with you how to have meaningful recreation and leisure in your life, and tips and tricks on how to cultivate your moments. Hello, so nice to see you. Hi, Laura. I'm wondering if you could, introduce yourself. I'm so happy to have you on.
Absolutely. Hi, my name is Laura Thomas. I'm 22 years old and I live in Hamilton, Ontario. I just finished up my diploma in recreation therapy from Canadore College, and I'm currently just starting my bachelor's degree at Brock University.
Awesome. That's really awesome. Similar schooling routes because I'm also just finishing my diploma. I'm wondering if you can tell me a little bit more about, your passion in recreation therapy.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very passionate about advocating for seniors and older adults and the standards of care as it relates to the profession of rec therapy.
Mhm.
I think that even though in the last decade and beyond that we have come so far, we still have so much to learn. And it really is an ongoing learning process on how we can best support those who need it most. My real passion lies in educating others on best practices and also using my voice to advocate for folks that might not have the accessibility to.
That's really awesome. I appreciate you sharing that. And I know you touched on, continuing our education. And I feel like that's so important, not only for, us in our profession, but really for everyone. So appreciate
Absolutely.
you sharing that. What I like to ask everyone is, what does meaningful recreation and leisure look like to you? Because I know for everyone it's individualized and different for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. To me, meaningful recreation is something that's very, very individual. And I say this because, as we all know, not everyone is interested in the same thing. Where I may enjoy very specifically planned out day trips with certain destination and organized events, you may enjoy more spontaneous and go with the flow type of adventures. Meaningful, by definition, is something important, useful, and with purpose. What is purposeful and important to me might be something entirely different to you. Above all else, I think that the most crucial part of any sort of therapeutic intervention is getting to the root of the purpose for an individual, asking essential questions and really finding the purpose in what they're doing and what the activity is and how it all contributes to their well-being. I think as a profession, we still have a lot of work to do when it comes to making that the center of our work. Meaningful recreation activities quickly become meaningless when we forget to consider the person first and the purpose first. The simplicity is this looks different for everyone. We aim to give challenges when able, learn something new, and refocus on renewing an old skill. We love measurables and verbal cues, but in my experience, a room full of smiles and rejoicing laughter is the best cue of all.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I appreciate you sharing that and very in-depth and educated response. So thank you so much. And yeah, I completely agree. I think, when I'm working with my clients, I know that, what's meaningful to me, like you said, we can't project our meaning onto others. Some person might like snowboarding and some person might like, you know, warmth and not like snowboarding. It's so individualized, and I think that was beautifully spoken. So thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, so let's get into it on, what we're here to talk about, and that's, dignity. So I'm wondering if you could explain a little bit about dignity and what that means and what it means to, maintain dignity for clients.
That's such a great question because I mean, when we were younger, we all know that our parents or caregivers may have said to us, treat others how you want to be treated. And we may have laughed it off, but as I've gotten older, I've really come to respect that statement. In fact, Greg Brenneman said it best when he said, the whole concept of treating people with dignity and respect is a concept that isn't a business concept, it's a life concept, and it's who you are at the end of the day. Unfortunately, the importance of respect and dignity isn't something that you can be truly taught in school or at work. You either understand it with all of your being or you don't. Um, we work diligently at our program to maintain the independence and personal choice of our clients as much as we can. They know that the minute that they walk through our doors, all of the way that they were treated leading up to arriving is behind them, and that they will be treated with the utmost respect for that day. And we really aim to represent personhood as much as we can before they leave that day.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think it's so important to, meet our clients, and not even only our clients, but even if someone out of the professional field is listening to this, meeting someone where they're at and
Yeah,
not expecting them to be where you want them to be, and meeting them where
absolutely.
they're at. Because, you never know what someone's going through and what, bad or good news they just have received. So we
Absolutely.
shouldn't, even if we are feeling upset because they're late or something like that, there's always
Right.
a reason behind it. So, yeah,
Yeah.
that's really
Yeah.
great. And I think when we're thinking about dignity, we can also think about, the age of individuals and how we can maintain dignity with that. So I'm wondering, how would you ensure that dignity is met depending on the different age of the individual, and what considerations may we want to make? You know, say if we're helping a child or an adolescent versus, an older adult. Obviously that's going to look a lot different. So wondering if you could touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Age is a big factor, especially when it comes to programming. Um, whether the person is 18 or 82, I'll stress again, they really deserve to be treated with dignity and with respect. And even more so when it comes to personal care, they sometimes need extra support and extra care. And that always means that our attitudes and our biases deserve extra care and consideration too. And as I've said, an 18-year-old and an 82-year-old may not have the same interests. We have to then be mindful of the programs that we're facilitating. In school, we're taught person first language and approaches, but in my opinion, there should always be a dignity first approach, no matter the age that you're addressing. We have to remain mindful of the population that we're serving and their genuine interest, not just their disability or present challenges. I think that a lot of rec therapists will find that if they shift their perspective away from treating the disability first and seeing their participants as individuals, the programs will change a lot with it. Unfortunately, it's not entirely uncommon for folks with different challenges to be treated like children when they're not. They are adults, even with their difficulties. They are a dignified person, and our programming should really reflect that as well, whether they're, a young child or a senior.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think, something to tag on to that is, the age appropriateness of our programming and how that impacts dignity. Because, say, if you give someone a puzzle that an individual with dementia can do, but it's for a child, that's not
Right.
necessarily, maintaining their dignity. And
Right.
there's so many different adapted tools out there nowadays that we can still maintain dignity and age appropriateness. And I think that's really great. And I'll link some below because there's so many different age appropriate things that are just adapted instead of using child things. Yeah, I think that's really important in maintaining their dignity too.
Yeah. Language is a really, really big thing too. And I think that as recreation therapists, we try really hard to be the best and do the best that we can. And sometimes, we don't realize that our language is maybe not the best terms for when you're labeling programs and things like that. But yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I completely agree. I always say that, words matter the most.
Yeah.
When you're talking to someone, if you're not, talking to them with the words and the phrasing in mind, it
Yeah,
can go really bad really fast. I know,
for sure.
the term an individual is demented used to be really popular, and obviously that just strips away so much dignity from them. Instead,
Absolutely.
person first language of saying, an individual has dementia, it's explaining that they have that, but it doesn't identify them. They're still a person and it just impacts them.
Yeah, absolutely. You're so right.
Now considering, recreation and leisure in the mix and the participation when working with individuals, or say if we're a caregiver, a family member, how can we promote independence and dignity while doing recreation and leisure?
Yeah, so I've seen this quite a bit. I work at an adult day program for seniors and older adults with dementia, and we do a lot of group activities. So, personally, I've been in a lot of different situations with clients where there's been a conflict that arises. And I think when it comes to promoting dignity within a group setting, it's common for us to be fearful of saying the wrong things in that conflict situation. We fear hurting the individual's feelings or coming off as the dictator, but the truth is we hold a deep responsibility to create a safe and positive and welcoming space for all participants, meaning that if we do end up in a situation where one participant is being singled out or is experiencing trouble with other members, it's really in our hands to kind of correct the situation and let all members know that discrimination is not welcomed. We really do hold the card in both creating and maintaining a dignified environment for everyone. In my personal experience, a gentle reminder that all participants have a right to enjoy an experience is sufficient and generally resolves the conflict. This reminder also lets all the participants know that the behavior needs to stop and promotes dignity. The best way that we can promote dignity and independence for others is by supporting and maintaining that safe space while also giving, that independence and control back to the person. Like we said, language is so powerful, and stopping a behavior before it escalates is the quickest way to communicate that. And then, like you said as well, having those accessible materials such as card holders and other modalities to encourage inclusiveness is also so important. One thing that I've done in the past is actually offer those aids or those modalities to folks who may not have the same challenges, but at least it normalizes that those aids can be used if there is some difficulty. By promoting the dignity and acceptance, we're constantly changing our approaches and educating ourselves and how to make things better and be the best that we can be.
Yeah, that's really awesome. What I'm thinking about while you're talking about all of this is, what foundations can we put into our programming or just working with individuals to help promote dignity from the start so it may not arise, later on? And how can we, foster that safe environment?
Yeah, definitely that education piece and setting those boundaries at the beginning of your programs with your participants. And yeah, I think it's just a lot of clear communication and making sure that's across the board and everyone understands.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I'm thinking about education now as like a caregiver as well, of how important the shift is to help us and to help them, especially in a day program. I'm sure you see lots of their families.
Yeah, definitely.
So
Absolutely.
educating them on, person first language so that not only do they feel safe and respected and dignified in the day program, but also at home and having that education piece.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of different strategies and, really, really creative ways that people have come up with maintaining that dignity, either, in their community or in their families. And, I applaud people for being the main caregivers because it's not an easy job.
Yeah, I completely agree. Speaking of that topic, do you have any strategies you would suggest in fostering dignity in our community or in our family or at work?
Yeah, yeah. So we'll start with our community at work. My boss came up with it actually. It's one thing that I've really come to respect and believe in over the last few years is recognition and name call. And I can't take credit for this. I work alongside an absolutely incredible recreation therapist. And one thing that she has firmly placed is the use of name tags. And I know that this is somewhat of a controversial topic. Some facilities use them and even rely on them for a lot of their safety protocols. But I'd like to offer a counter opinion. When you're working with seniors and older adults who may struggle with memory and recollection, we try our best to challenge them as much as possible while also supporting them. We encourage them to recall their friends' names and even more so encourage conversations that might include asking another participant's name. We do not require or ask our participants to wear name tags because we recognize they are adults and we aim to maintain their sense of independence and freedom of choice. Now, a lot of times the participants that walk through our doors may have had all of their choices taken from them. The least that we want to do is take that opportunity to share their name and their story away from them. That really is my best piece of advice I can offer more than anything else. Maintaining independence in small ways can make massive impacts, whether it's within your community or your personal life.
Yeah, I completely agree of, you know, being able to have that choice. I know sometimes I'd see people not having any choice of, even for meals. Meals are so important. We have so many personal preferences or colors. I remember, making name tags for my clients' doors and they got to choose everything. It may have taken me half an hour to an hour to make one name tag with them, but they got to pick, the color of their name tag, the color
Yeah,
of their name, and just maintaining that independence is so important. I agree. And I think
absolutely.
that's a really interesting counter thought of name tags. And yeah, I
Yeah.
think names identify us and they are us. And it's so important and so awesome that you're maintaining that and encouraging that.
Yeah, we've seen really, really great success with it as well. Like, we do have our clients come in with a number of different cognitive and physical disabilities, mental illness, and even dementia. And we've seen really, really great success, especially those who come in with, earlier late stage dementia, being able to come in and recognize who their friends are. Hey, how are you doing today? Like, I'm so glad I get to see you again. And that name recognition is one really, really special measurable that, we really take proud feelings in. So
Yeah, that's awesome. And you kind of mentioned this here too, but giving them the opportunity to connect because sometimes we're just so busy and focused. We have lots of tasks we have to run. And so giving that time for them to socialize just naturally and not, in a forced environment, I think is such a big thing too. That's awesome.
absolutely.
So moving back to, the family or spouse as a caregiver, how can we promote dignity for their loved ones and, educate and teach them about that?
Yeah, yeah, that's really tricky, especially when you get into family dynamics. I definitely personally relate to that. It's so easy to get wrapped up in the overwhelming weight of a new diagnosis or the challenges of caregiving. And I truly believe it's one of those things that you can never really understand until you experience it yourself. Whether you're going through the notions of it now or you're well on your way there, I have 3 points to keep in mind. um, they are still very much there. Whatever the diagnosis or the new challenges it is, they are still present and more than likely aware of what's going on. Try to be open to different possibilities with your relationship with them and keep in mind that they are still your loved one, even if they have different needs than they did before. Number two is they still deserve love, even on the hardest days. And when they challenge you and you might think otherwise, maintain that love with them. They need it more than ever. And the third point is talk to them, not at them or about them. It's a small but powerful act that maintains their dignity and respects their right to be involved in their own care. Learning patience is sometimes easier said than done. Trust me, I know. Relationships with our partners and our families can be challenging enough even without other considerations. But it's so crucial to keep in mind that even though they might be experiencing challenges, they still deserve love as much as we do. Um, and one of the biggest parts about dignity is that physical aspect of caretaking. And yes, I do mean toileting, feeding, personal care, and more. I think that when it comes to physically taking care of loved ones and even clients, a lot of us are really, really quick to become afraid. We become afraid of making the other person feel bad, of smells, of uncomfortable moments. I get it, truly, I do. But hear me out. If it was you in their position, how would you want to be treated? Keep your mindset on that focus, and the rest will come to you naturally. The 3 points I made will direct you in the right way. And lastly, don't forget to find humor in your life and your circumstances with them because laughter is honestly the best medicine. And in my experience, makes uncomfortable situations a lot calmer if you're able to find that ground level with the person you're supporting.
Yeah, those are awesome. And I hear empathy throughout that.
Yeah,
Ensuring,
lots of
empathy.
empathy.
Yeah, I think those 3 are so amazing in starting a great foundation for building empathy and dignity for their loved
Yeah.
ones, so I really
Yeah.
appreciate you sharing that. I know, those 3 were really great, and they were in depth.
Definitely the talking to them, I think is the most important one. You know, it's not super uncommon that, you know, whether you're in long-term care or an adult day program or wherever it is that you're working with rec, to see individuals being supported by staff and not having that direct one-to-one conversation, but rather another support person. And, you know, that person's kind of sitting there like, oh, like, okay, I guess I don't need to know what's going on with me, right? So that's so, so important.
I completely agree, and I can think of quite a few experiences at work, and I think one that really comes to mind is at dining and when they're eating, and,
Yeah.
an individual who has dementia and their spouse, and the person serving them only asking the spouse, "Okay, what are they having?" But like I said before, they still have that preference, and, even if we have to come bring the different plates to them, it might take a little bit more time, but they're eating what they enjoy, and really getting to those preferences. Yeah, awesome. So many great topics. I appreciate it. So you mentioned this at the very beginning of continued education and learning. So I'm wondering, why do you think it is important to continue to learn and educate ourselves on ways to provide dignity for our clients?
Mm. Yeah, I think especially with COVID-19 and everything that we've seen this year, it's become so evident that the world is constantly evolving. And with that, you know, diagnoses are always changing, and care and understanding of need is also in a constant state of change. And what an individual might need or enjoy today might be entirely different tomorrow, and that's totally okay. And one thing I've learned is that you can't go into caregiving with your own expectations that things will always go your way or one way at all, really. We really have to learn to adapt and go with the flow and have patience with one another, and constantly, constantly be educating ourselves on how we can do better, how we can carry out an activity in a different way. You know, I speak with COVID and the navigations with virtual programming, and I don't know what it's like at your facility, but for us, we are really, really struggling with the virtual programming right now because a lot of our clients don't have that access to technology, and you know, Zoom is just a foreign concept to them. So we as caregivers are constantly, constantly finding different ways of navigating programming and meeting clients where they're at right now. And you know, a lot of that is really, really challenging. But you know, it's that education piece and getting together with your team and coming up with different ideas. And yeah, yeah, a lot of education.
Yeah, I completely agree. If you told me a year and a half ago that I would be calling someone who is an older adult and has dementia and walking them through how to use Zoom, I would have laughed.
Yeah,
And then
100.
for my practicum placement in Alberta, I know we started Go the Distance, and that's a really great virtual program. And yeah, it was such a shift, and I can think of, even trying to Zoom my nana, my grandmother, is it takes forever. And yeah, I think continued education and yeah, COVID has taught us so much about having to be adaptable. I know
Yeah.
currently, because it's a facility that I previously worked at, it's more so small groups, we can still have that. But I think it shift because, your clients get to see their family, which is amazing. But my clients, have to have those phone calls or Zooms. So really
Yeah.
having to be adaptable. And it's been really interesting and has made it adaptable and had a lot of good outcomes because I know one of my clients, they're FaceTiming their family in Wales every week. And
Wow,
who would
that's
have thought
awesome.
that that would have been a possibility, a year and a half ago?
Yeah,
So,
it's the whole, like, good, bad, and the ugly, right?
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yes,
yeah,
lots of different reflections have come out of the past year and lots of innovative things too.
yeah, yeah, and it just to go along with that dignity piece too is these new aspects of virtual programming is, understanding that this person, our clients live within the community. So we have to take into account that we are now in their homes. So
Yeah.
it's that new level of dignity that maybe wasn't, definitely was not there before. So just so many new components of, therapeutic recreation that nobody could have seen coming. Right.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I can think of, the good things that have come out of that because it's provided our clients the dignity and independence to be able to stay at their homes. And even, we can meet our clients where they're at more so because they don't have to leave their home. And that could have been a barrier. Especially I'm thinking about uh, the mental health population of lots of different people. I know for myself, I have depression and anxiety, and sometimes I don't want to leave my house, but I'd enjoy participating. So it's definitely revamped and showed how important recreation and leisure is.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you speak about that piece of, supporting mental illnesses that, may have been a barrier before. I'll just share quickly. We had a client that previously would come to our program and was very, very withdrawn. He would sometimes pace back and forth, and then halfway through the day, he would have a really, hard time and would want to go home. Whereas now he's participating twice a week on our phone calls with the group. He's very, very active. He's very chatty, like more talkative than, he's ever been before. And I think it's not, other clients not seeing him. He's able to talk on the phone and there's no judgment. He's, able to be himself like he wasn't before. And I think it's just been an incredible opportunity for him. And it's so nice to see something good come out of COVID.
Oh, that's so awesome. Yeah, I love client success stories.
Yeah,
It always just makes my day hearing that we can change someone's life and,
for
not
sure.
change their life, but help support them.
Yeah, yeah. Change it in small ways and big ways, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's awesome. As we come to a close, we're talking lots about dignity. I'm wondering if you could just recap some points and takeaways that you want us to think about when this is over, and any recommendations you want to share with anyone to continue their understanding, my understanding of dignity.
Yeah. Um, so I'm so glad that you asked this because there is so many great podcasts, there's so many great quotes and in-depth studies. And I was thinking really hard about what it is that I wanted to talk about with this. But when I really sat down and thought about a recommendation that I really believed in, it wasn't a study or a quote, but it was actually a book called Out of My Mind by Sharon Draper. And I don't know whether or not you've read it before, but it's quite a simple read. It's very, very an easy read, but very, very sweet. Um, in short, the novel is about a young girl named Melody Brooks, and she has cerebral palsy. And the novel walks you through her challenges and successes as she goes through school. And I greatly appreciated this in the state of textbooks and essays. But it's also a novel that I laughed through and cried through. And despite the years of working on individuals with cerebral palsy, this novel really gave me the insight on Melody's perspective and how much better we need to be, and truly how much work there is left to be done. I'll just share quickly. One of my favorite lines from the book is, "A person is so much more than the name of a diagnosis on a chart." And yeah, it's just such a great novel, and I totally recommend reading it if you get a chance.
Yeah, I'd love to read it, and I love that quote, and it sounds like an amazing read. I think,
Yeah, absolutely.
stemming at the bottom of dignity is person-centered care and recognizing that they're so much more, so much more than any diagnosis. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's a great book.
Yeah, awesome. And is there any final thoughts that you want to share with us before wrapping up?
Yeah, I don't know if anyone listening to this is on Instagram, but you can find me at Rec with Laura and on YouTube with the same handle as well. I'm currently finishing up a series of live videos with other recreation therapists across Canada and the US as well. And all of these videos and other updates can be found on YouTube or Instagram. I absolutely love connecting with other recreation therapists and having these super important conversations. So please, please, please reach out and connect with me. And then, it was such a pleasure being on with you today, Adriana. So thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you, Laura. I am inspired and I want to buy that book and really
Yes.
dig my feet into, and advocacy is such an amazing part and role in recreation. And so I'm so excited to, further my knowledge on dignity and, advocate for it. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for tuning in this week. It was great chatting with Laura and really going through and talking about dignity because it's really important. And, that maintained independence really struck up a great conversation. Speaking of the conversation, I just wanted to recap some things that we talked about. So, we talked about maintaining dignity for our clients and what that really means. Next, we shared about age appropriateness and how that really relates to dignity and independence for individuals. Following that, sharing about the considerations of recreation and leisure and how they can be utilized as a great tool to promote dignity and independence for others while participating. And Laura shared some great tips and strategies for fostering dignity in our community. We shared about spousal and family caregiving and how they can provide dignity for their loved ones. Lastly, we shared about why it is important to learn and continue learning how to care in a more dignified way for our clients, loved ones, and community members. So thank you so much for tuning in. Check the links below as there'll be lots to continue your learning and to find Laura. Thank you so much and see you next week.